Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Azure update. It's the 19th of June. Not many updates this week, but some pretty nice ones. As always, we have new videos. I dived into Horizon DB. So this is Microsoft's variation that's built for the cloud of PostgreSQL. So it's 100% compatible with PostgreSQL. As an app developer, I don't have to change anything, but it can take advantage of cloud services, availability, performance, reliability, all of those things. So I dive into exactly what it is. And then there's been a pretty big update related to SMB shares on Azure files, the types of identity integration. So now I can use managed identities, I can use cloud-only Entra accounts, and I can use the platform single sign-on from macOS. So all new ways to go and leverage SMB files, which is fantastic when I need some durable, persistent storage, maybe even shared over multiple capabilities. Okay, so on to what's new on the compute side. So the VS Code Azure Functions extension has a completely redesigned new project creation experience. So what I now get is this visual template gallery. I can filter it, I can search over it, I can even use Copilot to describe what I want to get the scaffolding of the project actually built out. So it's just a lot more friendly and flexible for what I need. So Azure Migrate, which is fantastic, some of its capabilities are things like web app assessments. So, hey, I've got these web apps and it can assess if I want to modernize it, go into AKS, go into Azure App Service. Well, now with the integration with GitHub Copilot, it will actually look at the source application, the code. It understands the possible migration targets and configurations. And now with this, it will scan the application code and identify further opportunity to modernize the actual app code based on those targets. And today it works with .NET and Java for those web applications. On the networking side, so NAT Gateway v2 standard. Remember, NAT Gateway is what provides a virtual network egress, and obviously we get the responses out to the internet. Default egress to the internet is not really a thing anymore. We have to provision a way to go and talk to the internet. So NAT Gateway is one of the best, most scalable ways to do that. Well, now for the NAT Gateway v2 standard, it has ICMP support. So we think of echo request and the reply, which we use a lot when we think about validating connectivity. So can I talk to this thing? This next hop, is it available? Think if I type ping, ping is doing an echo request and waiting for the reply. When we do trace routes, all of those same types of things. On the storage side, so Azure NetApp Files now has NFS nconnect for the Azure VMware solution. So if I think about that Azure VMware solution, sometimes it can use NFS for its storage. So what this nconnect option does is it supports 4 parallel TCP connections to the same ANF NFS data store. So if you think about that, if I now have 4 connections, each of those connections had a certain amount of IOPS and throughput, they now get aggregated together. So if I have a very performance sensitive workload, I now get quadruple the amount of IOPS and throughput. Now this works on both Gen 1 and Gen 2 AVS private clouds, but do remember, it is obviously now 4 connections for every 1 logical aggregated connection to that ANF NFS data store. So if a VMware host supports 256 NFS connections, and I use this nconnect option for all of the connections, well, now I can only connect to 64 data stores per host because each connection is actually 4. So 256 divided by 4, 64. So just bear that in mind as part of that planning. So on the database side, so Azure Databricks has really enhanced OneLake integration. There's 2 levels to this. So in GA, the Azure Databricks Unity Catalog can now integrate with Fabric's OneLake for read access to any of the data available via OneLake without having to duplicate. So if I think about Fabric's OneLake is a fantastic data virtualization layer. Obviously, yes, it has native data that can be stored there, but I can also shortcut in data. I make it available without any duplication, any ETL for any open kind of file system, or I can mirror from a more closed, like a relational database. Well, now, stuff exposed via that OneLake, Azure Databricks Unity Catalog can come in and consume that as well. In preview, Azure Databricks can write to Delta tables in OneLake. So you're now enabling Azure Databricks to natively use OneLake as its storage layer. So if I think about the goal in organizations is I really want a single copy where I can of data to be used across all of the use cases. So now with Azure Databricks natively using OneLake for its storage, not only can I leverage Azure Databricks for its benefits, but all of those engines that can sit on OneLake, I can leverage those in terms of analysis and all the different types of reporting and dashboards, but also think of all the AI. I can create those ontologies with semantic models and data agents and operational agents, and then all the apps consuming that, all of that just through that one place. So miscellaneous. So Copilot Cowork went GA. So remember, the big shift here is regular Copilot it's an assistant to me. It's helping me do something. Cowork, the shift is it's outcome based. So I tell it, hey, I want this outcome. I need these artifacts. I need this done, whatever. And it just goes and works out how to do that. So it's now GA. Now this is consumption-based solution. So I'm going to pay for the amount of work it actually does. Now, the existing Copilot features, so think chat, the M365 in-app Copilots, analyst, researcher, agents built with Agent Builder, they're still part of that per seat Copilot license, and that continues to get investment. The Copilot Cowork, you still need that per seat license as a prerequisite, but then I pay using Copilot credits for all of the work Cowork actually does. Now, there are cost controls at the tenant level, at a group level, and a user level. In addition to, you can track the actual usage at those same granularities. There is a cost estimator. So based on role and the expected level of usage, it can help you plan out what the costs are. And at an org level, you can choose to enable or disable this. So it's disabled by default, but you can opt to go and turn on these consumption based features. So that's something you control. And then log analytics summary rules have gone GA. So think of summary rules as a way to aggregate data at some defined cadence and then store the results in summarized tables. Now, what that then does is if you think about, well, ordinarily, let's say I'm getting this massive amount of data coming in. When I do run a query against it, it's going to be slower. It's going to use more performance. And so that's kind of a negative thing. So if I can run these summaries on a cadence, when I then go and query, when I then go and run reports against the aggregated data, there's less of it, but it's giving me what I actually need, and it will be much, much quicker. It can also be used to think about data privacy. So maybe the raw data has information in it I don't want genuinely available. And so if I use the aggregation doesn't have to have that source detail. What I could also do from a cost perspective is that mass ingestion sent to a lower tier, a cheaper tier of log analytics, and then those summarized datas, store that in the analytics tier where it's generally going to be interacted with. And that was it. I said it was pretty quick. As always, I hope that's useful. Till next video, take care.